This meeting is now in session. My name is Adrienne Taylor Scott. I am the honored president of our Toastmasters Club, Progressive Leaders Toastmasters Club. We typically meet every Monday at Landmark Grill in Louisville. We are a hybrid club where we are online and in person. However, with the storm, we are only online this evening. So, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and read our mission statement for Toastmasters. We provide a supportive and positive learning experience in which members are empowered to develop communication and leadership skills, resulting in greater self confidence and personal growth. It is my honor to have 54 amazing people on this call tonight. I'm going to hand this over to our Toastmaster and moderator, Dale Frey. I'm going to mute myself. Please, all candidates, rename yourself, put your role or your candidate position, and then your name so we will know who everyone is. With that being said, I'm going to hand this off to Dell, and we must not forget to give our timer a little bit of time so she can explain her role tonight. Thank you, Dell. It's up to you. Go ahead, take it over.
Sure thing. Awesome. Now, also let me know, is my volume high enough or is it lower? Perfect.
It sounds great. It sounds
Oh,
great.
all right, cool. Good. That said, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here to Progressive Leaders Toastmasters Club. We meet every single Monday, I think as mentioned, but tonight is a special night. Tonight is January 26th, which is all about Congressional District 26. I tried to spotlight everyone, so we should have both candidates visible right now, at least on the desktop. I think on mobile devices, the one who talks will be the only one visible. But let me first jump right into it and explain the rules. We have a series of questions that we have for the candidates. We're going to be asking the candidates a question, and they will have 90 seconds for the moderation portion to respond. So 90 seconds to respond for each question. The candidates were given the questions in advance, but there still will be an ad hoc session where the candidates will have to respond on their feet to you. In the second portion of this session today, you, the audience, will be able to raise your hand and ask our candidates a question. In that portion, candidates will have 60 seconds to answer the question from the audience. But first, let's jump into it. First, before we get into the questions, we're going to have the candidates introduce themselves. Candidates, you have 2 minutes to introduce yourselves. By random selection, Ernest, we're going to start off with you. Please give us 2-minute introduction stump speech, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, Progressive Leaders Toastmasters, for hosting this event and for all of you who have taken time to join us today. Hi, I'm Ernest Lineberger. Outside of being senior class president in high school and active in my church and community, I was new to running for office in 2023. With a lot of dedication, motivated by the chaos, corruption, and cruelty of the MAGA political machine, I became the 2024 Democratic nominee for U.S. House for Texas CD 26. I was endorsed by several Democratic groups and the Texas AFL-CIO, the Dallas Morning News, and the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. I have once again been endorsed by the Texas AFL-CIO for this 2026 election. I am a retired naval officer, specialized in nuclear power, qualified for command, served tours on multiple warships, including the aircraft carrier USS Nimitz. These were years of service, long hours, few personal comforts, and hard work requiring selfless dedication. After retirement, I spent the next 29 years working the details of manufacturing semiconductors at Texas Instruments in Dallas. This helped keep high-paying jobs in this critical industry here in America. Long before that, I was the youngest in a family of 6, where my father was a Navy chaplain, Lutheran minister. We traveled a lot, lived in a wide variety of places, and interacted with many different people. As I grew up listening to my father's sermons, my faith developed. It can be boiled down to love your neighbor, and we are all neighbors. I'm running to restore democracy and put people's needs first. I'm Ernest Lineberger, Democratic candidate for U.S. House for Texas CD 26.
Thank you very much for that. And my apologies to the candidates. I did forget to mention one other thing. I have spotlighted Georgiana as well. She is our timekeeper for the evening, and her background color will signify how much time you have left. Blue means you're all good. Yellow, I believe, means 30 seconds left, and red means to close up because you have about 10 seconds left. Now, with that said, on to our next candidate introduction. Stephen Shook, please introduce yourself. 2 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for Progressive Toastmasters for hosting this event. My name is Stephen Shook. I'm running for Congress because this district deserves representation rooted in service, not ambition. I was born and raised in Texas. This is my home. For the past 17 years as a nurse practitioner, I've provided care to the critically ill and injured right here in DFW Metroplex. When families are facing their worst moments of their lives, they don't ask about party labels. They ask whether they can trust you. That responsibility has guided me. Excuse me. And every single day. I earned my degrees from Tarrant County College, Texas Tech University, where I graduated summa cum laude, and the University of Texas at Arlington. My education and my career taught me not just how to solve problems, but how to think clearly about what is wrong. In medicine, we live by one simple principle. First, do no harm. When people's lives are at stake, recklessness is unacceptable. Leadership means understanding consequences, knowing when actions help and when it creates more damage. Unfortunately, that's not what we see today. Republicans and Brandon Gill too often start with the question, what harm can we do, and work backwards from there. That's not leadership. I've spent my entire life living and serving this community. I'm not funded by Washington insiders, corporate interests, or political elites. You, the people of this district, are my priority. If anyone asks me to do something that harms this district, my answer will be no. This means fighting to keep costs of goods and services down, keeping healthcare affordable, securing our border while protecting constitutional rights, and keeping the government out of personal family decisions. To protect the people of Texas District 26, my word is my bond. Families here trust me with their lives every single day, and I will not abandon that commitment in Congress. For Brandon Gill, this seat is a stepping stone, a brief stop on the way to something else, probably a Fox News host. For me, this is the work. I'm here for this district for the long haul. No stunts, no auditions, just service, accountability, and hard work for the people of this district that I call home.
Thank you for that. Thank you very much. Next, we'll move on to our first question of the night. And again, going forward, the order of the candidates will be altered for every question. For example, for question 1, we're going to start with Ernest. Then for question 2, then we'll start with Stephen. So, Ernest Lineberger, first question. What do you see as the future of the Democratic Party? 90 seconds.
Went to vote in the 2022 midterms. I found there was no Democrat on the ballot for U.S. House. We had given up. The Republicans took the House majority. In 2023, I learned the same was about to happen. No Democratic candidate for U.S. House. I was horrified with the actions of the Republican majority Congress and jumped at the opportunity to flip a seat. But Dems had a bad year in 2024, having now lost the presidency, the House, the Senate, and the Supreme Court. Hopefully, this is the low. I'm finding many more people becoming active in my district. As I helped host protests, more people came out. Dem clubs have grown from handfuls to very crowded large rooms. And for the first time in many years, we have filled most of the races on the ballot. Many of the Dem candidates are veterans and not afraid to stand up for democracy and the people. We naturally align to work together as stewards for the people. Collectively, we plan to take these majorities back. We plan to take unlawfully usurped powers back from the executive. We plan to restore safety and quality of life back to our constituents.
Thank you for that. Now, Stephen Shook, on to you. First question. What do you see as the future of the Democratic Party? 90 seconds.
Okay. I believe the future of the Democratic Party has to look more like North Texas, practical, hardworking, and focused on results, not rhetoric. Here in North Texas, people aren't asking for ideological purity. They're asking whether they can afford health care, whether their paycheck keeps up with the cost of living, whether their kids can stay here and build a future, and whether government is actually working for them. The Democratic Party's future is leading with cost of living relief, lowering healthcare prescription drug costs, tackling housing affordability, making sure work pays in a fast growing region like ours. This is how we earn trust across party lines. It also means defending civil rights and personal freedoms without turning people's identities into political weapons. People in this district want fairness, dignity, and a government that stays out of their private lives, not endless culture war distractions. Most of all, the future of this party is about competence and accountability. Show up, do the work, deliver results. That's what people expect from the leaders here. And it's the standard I bring from my years of service to families in North Texas healthcare. If Democrats stay focused on solving real problems for places like our district, we don't just win elections, we'll deserve the trust of the people we serve.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And then, Stephen, we'll keep it on you. Question 2 is, why should voters choose you over your primary opponent? What unique qualities, experiences, or expertise do you bring to your campaign and the office? 90 seconds.
I would say voters should choose me because I've spent my entire life serving this community, not chasing titles, ideology, or political attention. I was born and raised in Fort Worth, and for the past 17 years, I've worked in North Texas hospitals caring for the critically ill and injured. When families are facing the worst moments of their lives, they trust me with what matters most. That's real responsibility, and it's not theoretical. I've earned my education here, built my career here, and I've never stopped showing up for this district. The experience shapes how I see leadership in healthcare. We live by the simple rule, first do no harm. You learn to think carefully about consequences, to act decisively when it helps, and to stop when reckless actions would make things worse. Washington needs more of that mindset and less political theater. What I bring to this campaign and to Congress is dependability, accountability, and real world problem solving. If you elect me, you come first, not donors, not party insiders, not political movements. If I'm pressured to support something that harms the people of our district, my answer will be no. You already trust me with your lives every day. I'll bring that same seriousness, compassion, and commitment to Congress, focused on lowering costs, protecting personal freedoms, and doing the hard work that this district needs for the long haul.
All right. Thank you for that. Ernest, on to you. Why should voters choose you over your primary opponent? What unique qualities, experiences, or expertise do you bring to your campaign and the office? 90 seconds.
Thank you, Dale. My strong background of service to the nation as a naval officer, now retired, experienced in significant operations in leadership roles, having earned multiple degrees, administered multi-million-dollar budgets, and more. My strong ties to CD 26 community, having lived in and near this district for the last 30 years, while at Texas Instruments in manufacturing, engineering, and management roles. Outside of work, I've been active with family, church, and community service organizations, volunteer activity, such as being a hospice volunteer, wheelchair ramps, food pantry, donating to multiple organizations, plus being a board member for SPAN, Meals on Wheels of Denton County. I live my empathy for my neighbor. This campaign is in its third year of actively participating in a wide variety of community functions, steadily increasing my name recognition and getting my message out to the voters. I've hosted multiple events, from town halls to protests. Throughout, I've made it clear that my intention is to put people's needs first. No PACs or other allegiances. Every bill will be scrutinized for who does this serve. I will be a statesman and a steward for the people.
Thank you very much for that. And Ernest, we'll keep it on you. Next question is, describe your position on Israel and Palestine. 90 seconds.
Okay, thank you, Dale. Israel cannot be in charge of Palestine. Both sides have grievances against each other. They need separation to let peace have a chance. The current situation is just horrible. Netanyahu and his officers need to be held accountable. To be clear, I'm not anti either party, but Israel currently needs to be restrained from inflicting more harm on its neighbors. To that end, the U.S. needs to stop sending money and weapons to Israel. These are being used excessively and not in the best interest of the American people. Israel seems to have adopted a first strike, strike hard, and keep striking policy. They don't need warplanes and bombs to police the Gaza streets. I don't want to talk about any particular attack, battle, war, or policy. It all has to stop. Both sides need to leave the other in peace. Currently, Israel can manage, and if they don't ruin it, are on the verge of peace with more neighbors than they have ever known. Palestine, on the other hand, has been destroyed and needs real help to recover and share in the peace.
All right, thank you for that. Now, Stephen Shook, on to you. Describe your position on Israel and Palestine.
Okay, with Israel and Palestine, let me be very clear and very consistent. I support the right of Israel to exist and for Israeli citizens to live in safety. But support for Israel does not mean blind loyalty to its government, and it does not excuse the harm to citizens. I am firmly opposed to the actions and leadership of Benjamin Netanyahu. His government has pursued policies that have resulted in large-scale killings, starvation, displacement, and collective punishment of civilians. That is not self-defense. It violates basic human rights and international law. No ally gets a free pass, ever. At the same time, Hamas is a terrorist organization. It has carried out deliberate attacks on civilians, kidnapping, and mass violence. And that must be condemned without qualification. But Palestinians are not Hamas. Civilians are not combatants. People do not lose their right to land, safety, or self-determination because an armed group commits crimes. Palestinian land rights are real, and forced displacement, illegal settlement expansion, and collective punishment are wrong, regardless of who carries them out. The United States must be able to hold these truths all at the same time. We reject terrorism without exception. We defend civilian life without exception. And we uphold human dignity and international law without exception. My position is principled and consistent. Condemn terrorism, protect civilians, respect lawful land rights, and demand accountability on all sides. That's the only path towards peace, and anything less guarantees endless violence and more innocent lives lost.
All right, thank you for that. We'll keep it on you, Stephen. Next question is, what will you do to protect the rights of transgendered people?
Protecting the rights of transgender people starts with simple principle. Everybody deserves equal protection under the law and the freedom to live with dignity without government interference in their lives. First, enforce existing civil rights laws so no one can be fired, denied housing, or refused service because of who they are. Equal treatment in employment, housing, education, and public life isn't special interest, it's basic fairness. Second, limit the government overreach into personal and family decisions. Politicians should not be inserting themselves into medical care, identity documents, or daily life choices. Those decisions belong with individuals, families, qualified professionals, not legislatures chasing headlines. Third, we protect people from harassment and violence by ensuring hate crimes are taken seriously and law enforcement has clear guidance to protect all communities equally. Fourth, we approach sensitive issues with evidence, restraint, and common sense, not blanket bans or one-size-fits-all laws. When questions arise in schools, healthcare, athletics, solutions should be informed by experts and local context, not culture war politics. And finally, we lower the temperature. Rights are best protected when leaders stop using small, vulnerable groups as political targets and instead focus on solving real problems that affect everyone. At its core, protecting transgender rights means upholding constitutional principles, preventing discrimination, and keeping government in its proper role.
All right, thank you for that. Ernest Lineberger, what will you do to protect the rights of transgendered people? 90 seconds.
Thank you, Dale. get the timer going over here. When you look at the Constitution and voting rights, for an example, it took a couple of amendments to get here, and we aren't there yet. The 15th Amendment for race and color discrimination, the 19th Amendment for sex discrimination, the 24th Amendment for poll tax. For transgender people, we're probably not going to get there any faster, but we're going to do our best. First, we need to recognize and respect them as people. Hate and cruelty is not uncommon in human behavior, and haters are always looking for an opportunity. I am an ally. I want others to also treat all people with courtesy and respect. Modeling and leadership are important, but are frequently undermined when the Republican Party locks on to this type of issue to use fear and hate as a divisive wedge to isolate their voters. We need to add language to laws that prohibits discrimination and harassment based on any facet of sexual orientation, identity, etc. We need to legalize self-determination and oppose legislation targeting the trans community and gender-affirming care. I am and will be an ally, a model of considerate and respectful behavior.
All right. Thank you for that. Ernest, we'll keep it on you. Question number 6. What solutions do you propose for expanding healthcare access and affordability? 90 seconds.
Thank you, Dale. We have a bad system of healthcare for sale with multiple middlemen and venture capitalists taking lots of money out of the system for themselves. The Affordable Care Act of the Obama-Biden years did what the Clinton administration could not and got the ball rolling. They brought many more people into coverage and erased the scourge of the pre-existing condition. We need to catch up with every other advanced society and make healthcare a human right. I think the next step is Medicare for all, but also with increased restrictions on activities that weaken our medical system. Venture capitalists who buy a hospital and then lease it back at high rates are a bleed on the system. When we need to move forward with an actively improving system, make a change, evaluate, make a correction, and monitor for success and opportunities to improve. Repeat that improvement cycle. For now, I'd like to work with Texas to fully expand Medicaid coverage. I'd like to patch up the immediate issues with the ACA that impact patient coverage, and I'd like to begin conversion to a single payer system like Medicare for all.
All right. Thank you very much. Stephen, on to you. What solution do you propose for expanding healthcare and access and affordability?
I'm a healthcare provider, so I could sit here and talk about healthcare all day, but expanding healthcare access and affordability starts with focusing on cost, coverage, and care people can actually use. First, we have to lower prices, especially for prescription drugs. That means allowing Medicare to negotiate prices, cracking down on price gouging, and giving patients real transparency so they know what something costs before they're forced to make impossible choices. Let me give you a real example from one of my patients this week. Monday, I admitted a patient to the ICU who couldn't afford their blood pressure medication. They didn't stop taking it because they didn't care. They stopped taking it because they had to choose between medicine and rent. They ended up suffering a massive life-changing stroke. He was 40 years old. What should have been managed with inexpensive daily medication turned into permanent disability, enormous medical costs, and a family's whole life will be never the same. This isn't a personal failure, that's a system failure. Second, we need to expand coverage so people don't fall through the cracks, strengthening the ACA, closing coverage gaps, and moving towards universal access that isn't tied to employment or luck. Third, access means more than insurance. We must invest in primary care and mental health and cut the administrative waste that drives up costs while cuts the administrative waste that drives up costs and burns out providers. Finally, we need to prioritize prevention and early treatment. It's better for patients and far less expensive than waiting until someone ends up in the emergency room or the ICU. Sorry, I ran out of time there.
All good, all good. But Stephen, we'll keep it on you for the next question. Question number 7. What is your opinion on the occupation of American cities by federal forces such as ICE, Border Patrol, National Guard, and the Army? 90 seconds.
Okay, let's be real clear here. American cities are not enemy territory, and they should never be treated like occupied zones. Federal law enforcement has a role, but when agencies are deployed into communities without coordination, transparency, or accountability to local elected officials, that stops being public safety and starts being force imposed on civilians. We are now seeing the real consequences of that approach. In Minneapolis, Alex Peretti, a U.S. citizen and ICU nurse, was killed during a federal immigration operation. He was a healthcare worker, someone who served his community, someone who looked like my neighbors, my colleagues, people I go to work with every day to take care of others. When federal operations end with people like that dead in the street, something has gone profoundly wrong. Using armed federal agents to flood neighborhood doesn't make communities safer. It erodes trust, undermines local law enforcement, and chills basic freedoms like speech and assembly. That's not law and order. That's performative force, and it comes with a real human cost. As for the National Guard and the Army deploying to military forces to domestic law enforcement should be rare, limited, and tightly controlled. Normalizing it is not a strength. It's an administration's failed governance. We are a constitutional republic. Civil authority comes first. Local governance matters. Federal power must be limited, transparent, and accountable, not unleashed to project toughness or score political points. You can enforce the law and protect civil liberties at the same time, but when federal forces start occupying cities and killing civilians instead of serving communities, that's not safety. That's a warning sign, and every American should be alarmed.
All right, thank you for that. Ernest, on to you. Question 7. What is your opinion on the occupation of American cities by federal forces such as ICE, Border Patrol, National Guard, and the Army?
All right, thank you, Dale. Well, it's illegal, it's horrible, it's unconstitutional, and it's wrong. Each of these agencies have their purpose. Used correctly, Americans are protected and safe. For some reason, the Trump 2.0 authoritarian administration seems to think that extrajudicial killing is permitted. Blowing up boats at sea is unlawful. Killing protesters is unlawful. Spinning the truth with disinformation about the facts of these crimes is also unlawful. This must be stopped and the perpetrators held to account. You can go back to the vast number of presidential pardons and also the Supreme Court rulings on immunity. Our Republican leaders feel that it is in their best interest to stay loyal to this rogue administration than stand for the people. Marjorie Taylor Greene finally saw it, but chose to quit to avoid threats and harm. It is up to us. As they prove this every day, more and more of the people are taking notice and coming to our side.
All right, thank you for that. We're going to keep it on you, Ernest, to answer the next question. And I'm actually, for the sake of time, because I do want our audience to be able to ask questions, and I was really hoping they could start around 7:30, I'm going to skip question 8 and move on to question 9. Ernest, we'll keep it with you. What does DEI mean to you, and how will you support DEI? 90 seconds.
All right, thank you, Dale. DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's another way to say fair. As a white male in America, I know that I have been given many advantages over the years. It may not have seemed so when I wasn't the fastest at a track meet or when I was accepted to the Naval Academy, but just a few ticks down the list from the cutoff. Some people want to work the system for their maximum advantage, even if others are equally qualified. DEI initiatives are designed to help everyone have equal advantages as far as knowing the opportunities and how to get to them. If you spell it out, diversity recognizes that we are not all the same and celebrates our differences along with the contributions each of us brings. Equity emphasizes the fairness part, not giving unfair advantage, but taking into account the impact of disadvantages already suffered. Inclusion is actively welcoming each person into the mix. When you think of superheroes, seldom do they all possess the same strengths. By pulling on each of their strengths rather than just those of the white males, we form a stronger team.
All right, thank you, Ernest. Now, Stephen, on to you for question 9. What does DEI mean to you, and how will you support DEI?
Okay. At its core, DEI should mean that people are judged by their work, conduct, ability to do the job, not by who they are, where they come from. Everyone deserves a fair shot, and no one should face barriers because of race, gender, religion, or background. That's not a radical idea. That's equal protection under the law. Where this conversation goes off the rails is when DEI becomes a political label instead of a practical goal. Some people hear DEI and worry about quotas or ideology. Others hear it and they think it simply means fairness and inclusion. When we argue about the label, we stop focusing on the results. My approach is results focused. I support fair hiring, fair treatment, and equal opportunity without lowering the standards or imposing rigid formulas. In healthcare, where I've spent my career, competence and trust are non-negotiable. Lives depend on it. At the same time, teams perform better when everyone is held to the same high standards and treated with respect. So yes, I support policies that make institutions fairer, more effective, and more trusted. And if that policy becomes divisive, performative, or distracts from the mission, it should be reevaluated. This doesn't need to be a culture war. It should be about fairness, accountability, and making the system work better for everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you for both candidates. This concludes the moderated portion of this forum. Next, we're going to hand it off to you, the audience. Do you have questions for your candidates who are in this Democratic primary? If so, please use the raise your hand feature. If you're on desktop, there should be a button called React. If you click on that, you should see a raised hand button. If you click that raise hand button, it will raise your hand, and it will put you kind of like in the queue at the top of from what I see. And we will be taking questions from the audience in order in which I see the hands raised. For this portion of the forum where audience members ask our candidate questions, candidates, you will have 1 minute to respond. We're just kind of trying to make things go a little bit quicker because I know we have a large audience tonight. We have over 59 members in our audience right now. So first hand I've seen raised was Nick Papas. Please unmute yourself and ask our candidates your question.
Good evening, gentlemen. My question for both candidates: what will your leadership look like when compromise is necessary but unpopular with parts of your own base?
Very good. Ernest, we'll start with you. 1 minute.
Okay. I don't know what that means. What does my leadership look like? So I try to be fair. I try to listen to, I think I have a knack for seeing multiple sides of an argument, but you're right. In Congress, often there's a bill for something very important and something will get attached to it, which is very negative. And you have the dilemma, do you vote for the bill or don't you? I think if you're looking for what leadership looks like, though, it's, talking to people, getting opinions, calling back to the district and saying, do you know about this? Do you see if we can talk to the mayors and the other people in leadership and see what's going on, talking to my staff and other people in the House. But open communication might be the best answer to your question, and I'll yield my time.
All right, Stephen, on to you. 1 minute.
I would say leadership isn't about telling people what they want to hear. It's about doing what's right, even when it's hard. I've spent my career in healthcare making decisions that there was no perfect option and real consequences. When lives are on the line, you don't lead by ideology or fear or backlash. You lead by evidence, ethics, and responsibility. Sometimes that means sometimes that that means saying no. But what it never means is avoiding the decision. When compromise is necessary, I'll be honest with what people ask why it's necessary. What are you gaining? And where I won't cross the line. My base doesn't need blind loyalty. They deserve transparency and respect. My guiding principle: protect individual liberties, treat people with dignity, and focus on real results. If a compromise moves the district forward and avoids greater harm, I'll support it, even if it's unpopular. And if it doesn't, I won't. Leadership is about earning trust through judgment and accountability, not chasing applause. And that's how I'll govern.
All right, thank you. Next, we'll have Stephen. We'll stick with you to answer the next question. David Stanaway, please unmute yourself and ask our candidates your question.
Oh, great. So how will you get out the vote in every precinct in the general election if you win the primary? Brandon Gill will have a huge war chest for paid canvassing.
Stephen Shook, 1 minute.
That's a great question. So money matters, but trust, organization, authenticity, that matters more. My strategy isn't built around outspending Brandon Gill. I can't do that. It's built around outworking and out-organizing. We're building a precinct level operation that combines volunteers, community leaders, and trust messages that already live in these neighborhoods. That means year-round organizing, not just election day canvassing. It means meeting voters where they are: churches, campuses, workplaces, online, and turning engagement into action when registration, reminders, and rides to the polls. Especially with young voters and working families, peer-to-peer outreach beats paid knock and drop every time. Paid canvassing can deliver a script. What it can't deliver is credibility. People know the difference between someone's paid to knock and someone who shows up and cares. Ran out of time.
Very good. Ernest, 1 minute.
So, that is a huge question. You're right. I know the Brandon Gill signs have Trump endorsed on there real big. I couldn't have paid him to put something more important on those signs for me if he would. So I appreciate him doing that. I have been working for the last 2 years plus getting out in the community. I go to my church almost every other Sunday, and then on the opposite Sundays, I go visit another church out in the community just to see and be seen and let people get to connect with me. I've hosted protests, I've hosted town halls, I get out and block walk, I go to meetings. I got to speak at an MLK event in Gainesville. I got to also march in their parade. I got to march in the Carrollton MLK parade. I'm just continuously out and about doing things in the community, along with working with the precinct chairs and the different Democrat clubs and organizations in my district. So that's a minute, and that's all we have time to share with you about that.
Very good, very good. Ernest, we'll keep it with you for the next question. Aaron Hendley, please unmute yourself and ask our candidates your question.
Hi, guys. So I have a question. During the general and also the primary, what policies are you guys advocating for that will actually get people to believe in you and your campaign and get them to vote? Because there is a lot of ground you're going to have to gain in this election to beat the Republican.
Wonderful. Ernest, 1 minute.
Okay, well, it's the normal Democratic policies. We're pushing affordability and talking about increasing the minimum wage. We're talking about strengthening unions so they can help with wages. We're talking about fixing the healthcare system where, maybe we can take that out of the employment cycle so you're not subject to your boss for your healthcare. We're talking about, the cost of living with housing, getting corporations out of the housing business and getting, to where people, maybe we do some things need to be regulated to make life more fair for the working and middle class. We've done too much. We've got to reset the tax structure. And what I ask people is, when does a person quit smoking? It's not when somebody tells them, hey, you got to quit smoking. It's when they want to. We have a lot of people that are changing and coming our way already, and we need to make them know they're fully accepted. Thank you.
Very good. Stephen, 1 minute.
So the policies I'm advocating for start with the issues people in this district feel every single day: lowering healthcare and prescription drug costs, making sure work actually pays, and keeping the government out of personal decisions. When families are choosing between medication and rent, that's not an abstract policy. That's a failure people recognize immediately. I'm also focused on cost of living relief, cracking down on price gouging, enforcing antitrust laws so small businesses can compete, and investing in infrastructure so that actually reduces the commute times and everyday costs for North Texas. On trust, I'm clear and consistent: protect individual liberties, treat people with dignity, and deliver results.
Very good. Stephen, we'll keep it on you for the next question, which will be by Kansas, Venezuela. Kansas, please unmute yourself and ask our candidates your question.
Why do people vote?
Very good question. Stephen, 1 minute.
Fantastic question. So people vote when they believe it matters, when they feel seen, respected, and convinced that their voice can actually change something. Most people don't wake up excited about politics. They vote because something is at stake: their family, security, their healthcare, their job, their rights, or their future to what they want for their kids. Voting is how people say, I want a say in what happens in my life. People also vote when they trust the person they're asking for their vote, not because they agree with every issue, but because they believe that person will show up, listen, and fight for them whenever it counts. And people vote when the alternative feels unacceptable, when staying silent feels like giving up.
Very good. Ernest, 1 minute.
Why do people vote? Usually it's because they have a serious concern. I know for me, my serious concern is that our government is not taking things seriously. Back when Michael Johnson, he still is, but was the Speaker of the House, and the Ukrainians first ran out of ammunition, he sat on the U.S. providing additional aid to Ukraine for 9 months. All it would have taken is a very simple bill to go through the House. There was a lot of support for it, but he would not bring the bill up for passing. To me, that was simply a numbers game. We just needed a Democratic majority to where we could flip the House and have a Democrat bring that bill up. There's a lot of issues like that for different people, whether it has to do with their health care, whether it has to do with democracy at stake. We see it going authoritarian, whether they're just embarrassed with what's happening publicly with the way our president treats other nations. Talk about invading Greenland and breaking NATO. There's a million reasons. Whatever you tie into is why you want to come out and bring Democrats into Congress.
Well, wonderful. Ernest, we'll keep it with you for the next question. By Knox. Knox, please unmute yourself and ask your question to our candidates.
Good evening. My question is, what strategy, if there is any, will you have to work with the other side to get things done in Washington?
Wonderful. Ernest, 1 minute.
Okay, thank you, Knox and Dale. I've been saying this for years. When I get to Congress, I'm not going to be giving the other side of the aisle the finger and sneering at them and calling them bad names. I'm going to say, thank you for what you've done to get us this far. Let's see what we can do to get us further. Maybe we can find something we agree on. Does anybody in your district use water? I know people in my district have water issues and water problems. What can we do to work together to resolve that? Do people in your district breathe air? Can we come up with some agreement on air policy? I'm not against guns and weapons. I just believe in weapons security. What can we do to improve the security of weapons and still maintain a fully functional Second Amendment? Can you work with me there? And so just getting to know people and maybe not even talking about what we can do first, but finding out what do we have in common? Do you have grandchildren like I do? Do you, those kind of things. Thank you for your question.
Wonderful. Stephen, 1 minute.
My strategy is simple. Start with real problems, not partisan positioning. I've spent my career in healthcare working with people who don't always agree, but still have to deliver results because lives depend on it. You don't begin by asking who gets credit. You start by asking what actually works. In Washington, that means identifying areas where interests overlap, lowering healthcare costs, improving infrastructure, supporting veterans, protecting basic rights, holding government accountable. I'll work with anyone, Democrat or Republican, who's serious about results. I'm realistic. We won't agree on everything, and I won't compromise core principles. But progress doesn't require total agreement. It requires enough common ground to move people's lives forwards. I'll approach my colleagues in good faith, be clear about my red lines, and stay focused on outcomes. Voters don't care about partisan fights. They care about whether we can govern. That's how you get things done. Less theater, more work, and a willingness to engage without giving up your values.
Wonderful. Thank you. Stephen, we'll keep it with you for the next question by Jan McDowell. Jan McDowell, please unmute your microphone and ask our candidates your question.
Okay, what do you each have to say about climate change?
Wonderful. Stephen, 1 minute.
About climate change? Well, if we listen to Trump, it's not a real thing, but climate change is real, and ignoring it doesn't make it go away. It just makes it the cost higher for working families. But the conversation has to move past slogans and fear. In North Texas, people care about extreme heat, grid reliability, water security, rising insurance costs, and disaster response. Those are climate change issues, whether you like the label or not. My approach is practical: reduce pollution, invest in reliance, and protect people from the impacts we've already seen. That means strengthening the power grid, investing in clean energy and lower costs to create jobs, modernizing infrastructure, and supporting farmers and communities dealing with drought and severe weather. We can address climate change without hurting working families or turning it into a culture war. In fact, doing it right creates jobs, lowers energy costs, and makes communities safer.
Wonderful. Ernest, 1 minute.
Climate change is real. There's a lot going on here, and there's a lot that needs to be done. I was embarrassed when Trump pulled us out of the Paris Accords in his first term, and he'd tell people, it's not real. There's nothing to be seen here, and that's just BS because they don't want to spend the money. They are taking as much of the money as they can. I could go off on MAGA being about milking America's greatest assets and pulling the money out of things, but climate change is what you're asking about. The severity of storms is one of the things that you can look at. Water level in some coastal communities is another thing you can look at. The ice that's melting, Antarctica and the Arctic, there's a lot of things that it's serious and it's going to cause us change. We will be able to adapt. We will be able to live, but we need to do more. I personally have already put solar panels on my roof and a battery and have driven a hybrid car for years and years. I'm doing what I can, but we need to do more nationwide.
Wonderful. Ernest, we'll keep it with you for the next question by Aaron Hendley. Aaron, please unmute your microphone and ask our candidates your question.
Hello again. So the question about bipartisanship was okay, but I'd like to know, what are your guys' red lines when it comes to negotiating with the other side? I'm autistic. This administration thinks that I belong in a camp and am diseased. And so if you had the choice between defending, I don't know, trans people's rights or immigrant rights or my rights as a neurodivergent person versus getting your bill passed, will you dig in your feet and say no when it comes to violating human rights?
Wonderful. Ernest, 1 minute.
So I tell you, that's an interesting question. The role of representative is to represent the entire district and bring good things to the nation and advance the country. sometimes you have to hold your nose and vote for something. Sometimes you get what you're looking for. There's a lot to go with compromise and negotiating. Uh, I'm not going to try to just tell you what you need to know, what you want to hear, and say, yes, I will never vote against red roller skates. If there's ever a bill that says something against red roller skates, I will never vote against it. A lot of times you have to weigh the odds. How hard have we been struggling to get better gun control to protect schools versus this one bill takes away a little bit of money from, a food bank or something. I profess I do not have any solid red lines. I mean, I may find one if you get to there and say, oh no, I'm not going to do that, of course. But just in my head, I won't go past that.
Wonderful. Stephen, 1 minute.
Aaron, thank you for asking this. And I want to be very clear. My red line is human rights. I will never trade away the rights or dignity of anyone, whether that's trans people, immigrants, disabled, neurodivergent people, or any other group, just to get a bill passed. No policy win is worth telling someone they're disposable, dangerous, or less than human. I've spent my career caring for people at their most vulnerable, and that experience shapes how I lead. If a deal requires denying someone right to exist safely, to receive care, or to live freely, my answer is no. Even if that makes things harder or costs me politically. Bipartisanship is a tool, not a value on its own. It's only meaningful when it improves the lives without violating their rights. I'll work with anyone in good faith to lower costs, improve healthcare, or fix a broken system. But what I will not compromise on dignity, equality, or bodily autonomy. So yes, if the choice is between passing a bill or defending human rights, I will dig my heels in and say no. Leadership means knowing where the line is and refusing to cross it.
Wonderful. And Stephen, we'll keep it with you for the next question by Stephanie Draper. Stephanie, please unmute your microphone and ask your question to our candidates.
Hello. Since both of you have mentioned healthcare, I want to ask you this question. Will you work, if you're elected to be our CD26, will you work to lower the cost of insurance premiums and hold insurance companies accountable and put a cap on how much they charge the consumers?
Wonderful. Stephen, 1 minute.
So that is a great question, because we have too much middlemen in health insurance. But yes, lowering insurance costs and holding insurers accountable has to be a priority, because right now too many families are paying more and getting less. Insurance premiums keep rising, not because care is getting better, it's actually get worse, but because the system rewards complexity and profits over patients. I will work to strengthen the rules to limit excessive premium increases, require real transparency, and stop insurers from shifting costs onto consumers through higher deductibles and surprise bills.
Leave that crack, please.
Please make sure everyone is muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I've just muted that individual. Wonderful. Ernest, 1 minute.
Okay, and I think I covered this a little bit earlier, but it's worth repeating that I am for Medicare for all. And this takes like your insurance premiums out of your entire employer-employee relationship. It goes into a tax strategy, and that plus whatever you would have paid out of pocket will normally be much, much lower than what you're paying already. And there are caps, like any standard Medicare. You have a deductible and you have a maximum that you pay so much per year. So yes, I don't have like the specific numbers, like it'll go to $3,000 or it'll go to something like that, because we'll have to negotiate this with the cost of getting more people on Medicare for all, that some of the levels may need to adjust ever so slightly, but there'll be far fewer costs to the individual. And I'm talking about the kind of Medicare that's not the corporate kind. I'm talking the official government Medicare.
Wonderful. Ernest, we'll keep it with you for our next and last question because we're coming up to time. Last question by Aaron Hendley. Please unmute yourself and ask our candidates your question.
Hi again. So, I'm not expecting any sort of deep or detailed answer because this goes heavy into policy, but I would like to know, for Medicare for All, what type of system do you guys like are in favor of at the end goal, basically? Do you support a 100% decommodified system like Canada or Britain, or do you support something more along the lines of like France or Germany, which is where things are just so cheap that pretty much anyone can afford it?
Wonderful. Thank you for that. I think I said we're keeping it with Ernest, right? Yeah, Ernest, 1 minute.
Okay. You know, there are different systems. You know, the rest of the free world is all on some sort of single payer system that we need to get to. And there are different systems and they have highs and lows. I think we need to really study those. I have not to the point gotten to
Oh,
where,
Shook is gonna
yes,
know because he's in medical.
I want to do the German system or I want to do the Canadian system. I I want to do actually more like our Medicare, but you know, we'd have to look at see how does that fit. So I apologize, I haven't studied that enough to say I want to do exactly this system. But then again, that's one of the things that I would work with and negotiate on with my colleagues on what can we get to.
Wonderful. Stephen, 1 minute.
So I've actually taken the time to sit down and write out a bill for universal health care or Medicare for all, whichever term you want to use. The day one, whenever I get elected, I can lay down in committee and say, this is my plan for universal health care. It covers a plan where we consolidate Medicare costs, VA costs, employee paid premiums, all this that come together and make less cost to the individual and less cost to the government. And people will actually get coverage for preventative medicine, healthcare, so people aren't stuck in the ICU spending tons of money. Now, this plan that I've come up with spans over the course of about 5 years to fully implement so that way you can not take people's jobs away and integrate people that currently work as claims adjusters in the private sector into the government sector and ease into the program so that it actually functions properly and survives.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Tell you what, I think we can squeeze in one last question, but this has to be the last one for the sake of time. Stephen, we'll stick with you for this last question, final last question. Kansas, Venezuela, please unmute yourself and ask our candidates your question.
I'll keep it brief then. So right now we see a lot of communities that are contending with folks trying to buy warehouses and open AI centers. So this specific question. So what is your position on these massive AI centers coming into communities, using water resources? What's the best way to contend with them? And if approached by any of these companies, are you willing to take or not take their money?
Wonderful. Stephen, 1 minute.
So we'll start with, no, I'm not going to take their money. So these facilities can't be allowed to move into our communities, drain our local water supplies, and then leave residents to deal with the consequences. Water is a public resource, not a corporate afterthought. If AI data center companies want to build in a community, they should meet strict requirements up front. Full transparency on water and energy uses, binding limits that protect local supplies, invest in conservation and infrastructure, and real accountability if that exceeds those limits. Communities should have a say, not just a notice after the deal is done.
Wonderful. Ernest, 1 minute.
Yes, the same answer on the money. You know, I don't take corporate money in my campaign. I do the best with the dollars that we get. these data centers are a definite issue. I can see the Republican Party trying to sell them as hey, these are jobs coming to our uh, rural county or whatever, but they aren't really very many jobs. They do eat a ton of resources. They provide a service with what the data center does, but it needs to really be engineered. I kind of think at this point, the data center people weren't sure where they were going to be able to build, and they've over requested. It looks like they want to build 5 when they really just wanted 1. And so there's that to hassle with the people who are trying to make these preparations. But there needs to be serious regulation on where's the water going to come from and where's the energy going to come from. I saw something where one was going to have like 4 miniature nuclear reactor plants installed around it or something for power. This just can't be. We need smarter heads.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Now we're coming up to time, and so now we will stick with you, Ernest, for the next part, which is candidate closing statements. This is 90 seconds. So, Ernest, 90-second stump speech.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been my pleasure to consider these questions and share my thoughts with you. I appreciate your time and attention. I hope it was meaningful to you. If you would like more information on myself or my campaign, you can go to my website, linebergerforuscongress.com, or check out my book on amazon.com. It's called There I Was. I actually wrote this just recently, maybe over the summer, and it has like a lot of short stories about my life with a little bit of philosophy. You can learn a little bit about me. To summarize some of the key points, I'm Ernest Lineberger, a retired naval officer, engineer, and Democratic candidate for U.S. House for Texas CD 26. I believe in putting people's needs first. I'm beginning my 3rd year of this campaign, having received over 138,000 votes in 2024, working hard to close the gap. If you'd like to be part of the difference, you can volunteer through my website. It's linebergerforuscongress.com. I'm asking for your vote in the coming primary election that begins on February 17th and ends on March 3rd. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Stephen, closing remarks, 90 seconds.
Thank you, everyone, for having me and for your wonderful questions. My campaign has always been about who you can trust to show up, do the work, and put the district first. I was born and raised here. I've spent the last 17 years caring for the people of North Texas on the worst days of their lives. My family, when families are in crisis, they don't care about party labels. They care about competence, honesty, and whether someone will stand with them. That responsibility has shaped how I lead and how I see the role in government. My guiding principle is simple: protect individual liberties, treat people with dignity, keep politicians focused on solving real problems. That means lowering healthcare costs, making sure work pays, protecting basic rights, securing our communities, and keeping government out of personal decisions. This district deserves representation rooted in service, not ambition. Someone who knows the district from the inside, someone who isn't auditioning for the next job, but is ready to do this one fully, seriously, and for the long haul. If you trust me with this responsibility, I'll bring the same accountability, compassion, and work ethic to Congress that families here have trusted me with for years. No stunts, no distractions, just hard work, honesty, and results. I'm Stephen Shook, and I'd be honored to earn your vote. If you have any more questions for me, you want to talk about this further, you can email me or look me up on my website on shookforcongress2026.com. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you to both candidates. Thank you so much for running. It really means a lot to all of us. Thank you both for being here. We know that primaries can sometimes be awkward, sometimes be stressful, but the fact that you two are willing to run, to spend your time, to not just volunteer, but also to run for office really means a lot. Thank you both so much for running for office. Thank you both so much for being here. This concludes this portion of tonight's candidate forum. I will now hand it off to Adrian Taylor Scott, our president, for closing remarks, and then we will end the recording.
Thank you all for joining us. If you can go ahead and hit your react button, let's get some emojis going up for all of our candidates. Great job, Toastmasters. I'm going to take a couple of pictures for social media. VP Sandy, do you have anything that you want to say to us, VP of Education Sandy?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Such a fantastic job. I don't know how loud I'm being.
Not loud. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Dale. Thank you, Georgiana. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Ernest and Stephen. Please, everyone, visit our club. Next Monday, we should hopefully be back in person at the Landmark Grill. And for everyone who can't be there, we're always hybrid. Thank you.
That concludes our meeting for this evening. You guys stay safe and stay warm. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Good night.